It was a bright summer afternoon in East London, one of those ordinary days where nothing seemed out of place. But within minutes, that calm would be shattered by one of the most shocking acts of violence the city had seen in years. 2 men lay dead outside their own family hotel. Their killer had walked away from Friday prayers and returned with a machine gun. And for the next 7 years, he would vanish without a trace. This is the story of the manhunt for Ayub Khan, the London gunman who thought he'd escaped justice. The day everything changed. It was Friday, the 29th of August 2003, in Forest Gate, East London. 20-year-old Ayub Khan had been attending Friday prayers at a nearby mosque. He'd arrived in a dark blue Volkswagen Golf, accompanied by 2 friends in a green Honda Civic. They'd parked across the side road, blocking access to the rear of the Forest View Hotel, a small family-run business on Romford Road. Minutes later, 52-year-old hotel owner Amarjit Singh Tuana and his nephew Rajinder arrived, driving their van. Unable to get through because of the cars blocking the road, they parked their van across, effectively trapping the vehicles that had caused the obstruction. Then they went inside for lunch. For a few moments, it was nothing more than a simple parking issue, but when Khan and his companions returned from prayers, tempers began to rise. At around 2 p.m, the men who'd been praying realised their cars were blocked. Frustration built as horns blared across the quiet street. Amarjit came out of the hotel and moved the van to let them out. The drivers of the Honda left, but Khan didn't. He stepped out of his Golf, his anger visibly building. Words were exchanged. He accused the hotel owners of damaging his car, a claim that wasn't true. Witnesses later said Khan was aggressive, using his size to intimidate, shoving Rajinder in the chest. Amarjit tried to calm the situation, explaining there was a misunderstanding, but Khan wasn't listening. He shouted, swore, and then finally stormed back into his car, driving away with rage still written all over his face. For most people, that would have been the end of it, but for Khan, it was only the beginning, the return. 10 minutes later, at around 2:20 p.m, Khan came back. Only this time, he wasn't looking to argue. He was looking to kill. He and the men he'd been with returned to the scene. But witnesses noticed something chilling. Khan was now carrying a submachine gun capable of firing up to 1,000 rounds a minute. They began attacking the hotel van, smashing it in with pure rage. When Amarjit and Rajinder ran outside to intervene, Khan opened fire without hesitation. 10 rounds ripped through the air. In seconds, the quiet East London street was transformed into a war zone. Amarjit and his nephew collapsed onto the pavement, mortally wounded. Khan then aimed at Amarjit's daughter, but the weapon jammed, sparing her life. Then silence. Few stunned witnesses, the echo of gunfire still ringing in their ears, and 2 men lying dead outside the place they'd built together. Khan fled the scene with his accomplices. Their hoods pulled up, their car speeding off down Romford Road. Within minutes, police were called to the scene. What they found was a massacre. The investigation begins. Detectives from the Metropolitan Police arrived to one of the most shocking crime scenes they'd seen. 2 men, both respected members of the Sikh community, murdered in broad daylight, and a killer who had vanished. Witnesses came forward quickly. The suspect was identified as Ayub Khan, a 20-year-old known locally for his temper and criminal background. He'd already served time for robbery and drug offences. Police soon realised they were not dealing with a first-time offender, but a man with a reputation for violence. Within hours, Khan was named publicly as the prime suspect. A 10,000 reward was offered for information leading to his arrest, but by then it was already too late. Khan had fled the country. The Vanishing Act. In the days following the murders, detectives pieced together Khan's movements. He'd made a series of phone calls immediately after the shooting, all to one man, Abu Bakr Manhunt, a 20-year-old market stallholder from East London. The name was familiar to counter-terrorism officers. Manhunt had been previously investigated for extremist activity and was later jailed for plotting to target a decorated British soldier. But at this point, his link to Khan was what interested detectives most. Why had Khan called him repeatedly in the minutes after the shooting? Was Manhunt the one who arranged his escape route out of the UK? When Manhunt's flap searched, police found disturbing evidence, including a gun being converted to fire live ammunition and material suggesting violent intent. He was questioned over the double murder, but without concrete proof of his involvement, he was released without charge. For detectives, it was a frustrating blow. Khan's trail had already gone cold. The trail runs cold. Months passed, then years. Detectives continued to chase leads, liaising with international authorities, but Khan seemed to have disappeared completely. In 2004, Amarjit's daughter made a public appeal. She urged members of the local community, particularly those connected to the mosque where Khan had prayed that day, to come forward. But no one did. Behind the scenes, police were struggling with a question that haunted the investigation. How had Khan, a relatively low-level criminal, managed to obtain such a deadly weapon? Ballistic testing revealed that the Mach-10 submachine gun used in the murders had also been used in a separate shooting in Coventry earlier that year. It was a clear sign that the weapon was circulating within organised criminal networks, and Khan had somehow gained access to it. But with every passing year, hope of finding him alive was fading. Detectives refused to close the case, but even by 2009, there had been no confirmed sightings. A breakthrough. Then, after almost 7 years, a message came through from overseas. Authorities in Bangladesh had flagged the name Ayub Khan during a routine check at Dhaka airport. He travelled there from Pakistan to visit a friend. His details matched those of the fugitive wanted in Britain for double murder. British detectives were immediately contacted, working alongside Bangladeshi police and Interpol. They confirmed the identity, it was him. Khan was arrested on arrival, detained, and extradition proceedings were quickly set in motion. 2 months later, the man who had fled justice for 7 years was escorted back to the UK in handcuffs. For the families of Amarjit and Rajinder Tuana, it was a moment they had long feared might never come. Justice at last. When Ayub Khan finally stood trial at Woolwich Crown Court, he pleaded not guilty. He denied everything, the shooting, the intent, the weapon, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Eyewitnesses placed him at the scene, the ballistic tests matched, and his flight from the country spoke volumes. After a short deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict: guilty of double murder and attempted murder. The judge described the killings as brutal, cold-blooded, and utterly pointless. Khan was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 26 years. In the public gallery, members of the Tuana family wept as the verdict was read out. Their 7-year nightmare had finally reached its end, but the sense of loss would never fade. Aftermath. Detectives from the Homicide and Serious Crime Command praised the community members who had come forward years later to assist with the extradition. But the investigation wasn't entirely over. 2 men seen fleeing the scene with Khan that afternoon were never identified. Detectives issued fresh appeals for information, describing them as Asian men in their late teens or early 20s, both wearing hooded tops. The Mach-10 machine pistol used in the killings has never been recovered, and for investigators, those missing pieces still represent unfinished business. Reflection. The murder of Amarjit and Rajinder Tuana remains one of East London's most shocking double killings, not because of its scale, but because of how senseless it was. A minor parking dispute, a few angry words, and 2 innocent lives destroyed in an instant. Ayub Khan thought he could disappear into another country, another life, but in the end, his past caught up with him. The London gunman who vanished for 7 years was finally found, and the Tuana family, at last, saw justice served. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video. It really helps more people discover these cases. And if you're new here, subscribe for more real UK true crime stories every week, cases of justice, tragedy, and the investigations that brought them to light. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe. And remember, sometimes the smallest moments can change everything.